besties. Welcome back to another episode of What's the Tea with Tim. This is The Steep. I hope your mug is ready because today's tea is hot, deep, and so refreshing for the soul. Now, let me ask you something. When was the last time someone asked you how you're doing and you actually gave an honest answer? In a world where I'm fine has become the go-to reply, it's time to break the cycle. Today, we're diving into why it's okay to not be okay and how therapy and self care can be the tools to help you not just survive, but to thrive. I'll be joined by a special guest, Logan, a counselor with a holistic approach to therapy. He's going to share his insights, practical tips, and his journey as someone who is dedicated to helping people embrace their whole authentic selves. So grab your tea, settle in, and let's spill the tea on self care, growth, and being real with ourselves. Logan Golden is a licensed psychotherapist passionate about holistic healing and supporting individuals of all ages with a focus on minority populations. His approach blends mind, body, and spirit, offering a calming environment to navigate unique challenges. Logan believes in tapping in your inner resources to heal and grow using techniques like somatic exercises, Reiki, music therapy, meditation, and even virtual reality to foster self discovery. With a master's degree in clinical and mental health counseling and a Reiki master certification, Logan also serves as an adjunct counselor at the Salvation Army and sits on the board of the Special Olympics of Greater Memphis. He's here today to chat about therapy, self care, and finding hope in life's challenges. Logan, welcome to What's the Tea with Tim. How are you
I
today?
am doing very, very well. I'm incredibly blessed to be on this podcast with you. I know during the countdown, you had us all anticipating what's coming up, something new is coming up. I was waiting for it myself, and to actually be here with you in this space is a true blessing. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And Logan, you are absolutely amazing. I have been following your work for a long time. For the audience, Logan, we haven't met in person. We're just, friends on the internet that have just honestly become really close. So again, really appreciate you for coming on the show. And I'm so glad to just have you here to talk about therapy, self-care, and just, we're in a strange time right now. It's 2025. The new year just started. We got Trump coming into office. People get anxiety around the new year. What are you feeling about 2025 right now? And ultimately, I'm curious to know what fills your mug these days and what brings you joy.
Well, with regard to the upcoming year, it's easy for us to allow anxiety and fear and just general nervousness to seep in. I'm very grounded within my faith and my spirituality. That basically helps me truly, and I can't put enough emphasis on that. I have a really good support system. I have good family. I have some friends who are here, and friends who I also had to, put a hard boundary on, which is another topic, of course. But I will say allowing yourself to foster your own intrinsic safe space is going to be very key and paramount to any sort of progression when it comes to your own internal happiness and joy.
I absolutely agree, Logan. And ultimately, we will see how 2025 pans out. And, the audience doesn't know this, Logan, but I'm going to go ahead and just share it anyways before we get into the discussion today. Logan, we had a mishap in our first initial recording. So, again, happy to have you back. And ultimately, this is going to be a great episode. So, again, really appreciate you for coming on the show.
It will be a great episode.
Yes, yes, yes. So, Logan, let's start with the elephant in the room. You are a mental health professional. You specialize in therapy and just helping people become their most authentic self. Why is therapy so stigmatized, and how can we normalize it in our communities?
Uh, Going into anything generational can be quite challenging. This is generational for sure. It can get quite defensive when it comes to things that are generational. I define tradition as peer pressure from those who passed away, and we still can, like you said, stigmatize the modality, which is therapy, and it can be very difficult for us to grasp anything that is outside of our comfort zone. But in the Black population, or just most minorities in general, matriculating into upper echelon society was difficult, very, very difficult. So with
Hmm.
that came a lot of expectations around how we need to act, how we need to portray ourselves, what we can and cannot share with the masses, because we didn't want to be viewed as weak or less than. So how many times have you gotten the response, oh, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm fine. Are you really fine? Like, truly. I think we have commercialized that word, fine, into something that is just completely normal. And we just say, oh, I'm fine. How about you? Oh, I'm fine as well. Okay. Now we are saying fine stands for, apologies for my French, but fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. So if anyone was to ask me, hey, how do you feel? And they say fine, I tend to challenge them on that. Truly, being vulnerable is very, very hard. Like I said earlier, we weren't created to have a space of vulnerability, and we just don't like that, whether that is from a dyad between two individuals or from a family system. Like, how many times have you heard, oh, stop, men don't cry? Like, so yes, we can cry. One, it is safe enough to cry, but the thing is, we don't feel safe to do that. We're able to, but we don't feel safe regarding it.
Fucked up, insecure, neurotic, emotional. Did I get that right?
That's it. Say.
And it's crazy how like people can say, "Oh, I'm fine," and it's like we're almost desensitized to share how we really feel,
Mhm.
and ultimately, like either we may not trust the other person, or we just again, people may not want to hear
Mhm.
the burden, or want we may feel like we don't want to put the burden on someone else. So ultimately, it's okay to express how you feel. And going back to what you said about just generational trauma, like it does come back or go back to the days where we just couldn't express ourselves as Black people. Again, like hearing the words "men don't cry," I've heard that so many times in my life. I felt my best when I cried after having that emotional release to feel whatever emotions that I needed to. And then it's like, okay, you felt that. So now, all right, let's keep going. You got to keep, living your life. Felt what you felt, and you learned a lesson, and now you move on.
Mhm.
So it's tough. It's really tough.
Incredibly, incredibly, it's wild.
It is such a wild time out here. Oh my gosh. How would you say your holistic approach helps people who might be skeptical about therapy?
We are all different. We're all unique when it comes to emotionality, and I guess learning who your authentic self is subjective to a certain degree, to a very high degree at that. So being holistic in nature, especially with my approach to psychotherapy, is, I think, paramount, and it's imperative, because you can't treat one issue or one challenge the same way as another one. I will say paying attention to who you're talking to, who is actually sitting across from you, that's going to be the key. Actually being able to not
Mm,
just listen, but observe with your eyes. We have five senses for a reason. So being
hmm.
able to actually do that and connect with whoever you're, again, talking to. I'm not going to say the word client, because you can do this with anybody, really taking time to put yourself on the back burner and then hold space for someone else. I'm not saying be codependent. I'm not saying people please, but I am saying if you are truly trying to hold that space for someone, it is about putting yourself on the back burner first for a little minute, and then you can go back and forth. We now say I want to have a little kiki. I want to kiki with my friends, all of that, and having
Yes, we love a good
I
kiki.
swear, I do. I know I do. And I will say that is very important within our community, really, for us
Mhm.
to feel seen, actually be vulnerable with those individuals.
Wow, thank you, Logan.
Yeah.
And it's important. Did you see Wicked? I'm curious.
What? Of course.
Okay, because the internet is like going up right now talking about holding space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity. So when you were saying holding space, it reminded me of that. And Wicked was a great movie, by the
It
way.
really was.
So yeah, I think it's important to really, especially if your friend is going through a hard time, like definitely holding space for them. And it could be 5, 10 minutes, but just you even listening to them makes a huge difference in how they perceive the world, their situation that they're going through. And it's really just important to like just listen and, like I said, hold space for them.
Yes.
You mentioned the holistic approach to how you treat your clients. And one thing that I've started doing is acupuncture. I've definitely seen like a difference in my energy levels, my diet, and it's crazy how like self-care not only encompasses treating your body well, like from a physical standpoint, but it also is dieting, exercising, and just again how you're treating your body.
Mhm.
Am I getting that right?
Absolutely. And I think
Hmm.
we call it woo woo. Some people don't like all the woo woo fancy spiritual.
The woo-woo.
Yeah, the woo woo. They don't really like that. They want things based
Hmm.
out of logic or rationality. But again, if we have to think about everything is energy. If we are energy, our soul is energy. If our soul is energy, this is just merely a vessel. I'm not trying to get too spiritual in all of that, but I will say it is real because we can feel it. How many times have you stood in line like at a Starbucks or something like that, and you hear like the bell behind you, and then someone walks to the door, you do that little grin or hey, how you doing? Then you turn back around, and then something tells you to take one more step forward. You don't know what it is, but something just tells you to take that step forward, and then you do. And then you look back behind you, and the person behind you, they did the exact same thing before you, right after you did, right before you did. So
Hmm.
you feel that surge, you feel that aura, you feel that vibe, you feel that energy. It's real.
Yeah.
Going even back to just how we are designed. If you look at all of our organs, most of our organs, that is, you can see whatever the shape of the organ, there is a food and or a fruit or a vegetable that corresponds to the very organ that will actually benefit. Eyes, carrots, it's the ocular
Mm.
pathway in the eye. Lungs, beans, the beats, heart health, same thing. They're the
Yeah.
exact same shape. So again, just going back to the original design of how we were made, it's all energy. It's all intentional, is what I really want to say.
Yeah. I'm curious to know because you started mentioning some of the different food groups. If someone wanted to just slowly start to like implement wellness into their lives, what is a food group or certain foods that they should incorporate into their diet if you know about that?
Well, I'm not a dietitian, but I
Yeah,
for
I'm
sure,
curious.
for
Hmm.
sure. I will say, I think the what I really want to say is taking out. It may be one of the most important things that we can do. Analyzing what is driving you from a artificial level. I know we don't we love
Mm.
our coffee. We do love our coffee. I will say monitoring our caffeine intake is very, very beneficial. Taking away artificial energy that could be found in, for instance, alcohol.
Uh, Listen, you've hit on a really tough one right
Yeah,
there.
that's
Me personally, I have just started to monitor and limit how much alcohol I started to take in because I just hated the feeling of being drunk or the feeling of like sluggishness.
yeah.
So that can definitely be one for sure.
What we find is the more we start to elevate mentally, there is a direct opposition when we start drinking. It's like, oh, I don't even like this feeling. Oh, I don't even like how I feel the
Hmm.
next morning. Or this is giving me the same feeling that it did when I was, a freshman in college or a sophomore in college or 35 years old. We start to come to those epiphanies and those realizations.
Yeah.
I'm not going to push that sort of agenda. I do ask clients, I do ask a lot of people, when you do drink, I ask you to ask yourself, why am I drinking right now? Is there a motive behind it? I know with mine, before I became sober, mine was very vulnerable. Let's be vulnerable today. Might as well. So
Hmm.
I will,
Let's get into
let's
it.
get into it. So after a deep analysis of my own therapy and stuff, I had to realize that I was drinking to be more social. It was my thing. I
Mm.
would, let's say it's like 10 o'clock or so. I would
Yeah.
actually want to go home at 9 o'clock, but I stayed till like 10. And even after that, and I'll be like, you know what, I really want to go home, but you know what, something may happen. I don't want to be viewed as this if I leave. What if Mr. and Mrs. Wright, they walk in the door and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna miss out on my blessing or my person or whatever. So I would drink more, which is doing me an incredible disservice. I was again
Yeah.
denying myself for the betterment of what, well, I was denying myself for what I thought was going to be better. And it wasn't. So once I was able to analyze that people pleasing nature of myself, I was able to really move to a different level of my healing. And that was very beneficial. I know we started this whole thing about diet. And we
I
kind of
know.
went this way, but it's real. That's going back to the holistic health that you were speaking of, right?
And this is true. And I think that, in to bring from a faith-based perspective into it, our body is or your body is a temple. So it's like being able to take care of it in the way that you need to, and whether that is limiting your alcohol intake or just limiting even the people that you surround yourself around, because people bring energy as well, and our bodies absorb that energy around certain people too. So it's like just being able to monitor the things that are, I guess, necessarily your triggers, and the things that are impacting your mental health, so that way you can live the best holistic version of yourself. Am I becoming my own therapist, Logan? Like I'm curious.
What you're practicing is acute introspection. It comes in three forms:
Oh
acute
wow.
introspection, medium introspection, and then longitudinal introspection. You having talking about it now in this space in this manner, this is acute introspection, which I challenge a lot of people to do. Meditation can help with that as well. And I love what you just said. Honestly, self discipline is the greatest form of self love. So us being
Mm,
able to truly lock in to that version of ourselves is going to be incredibly beneficial, because again, self-discipline is basically obtaining what you need, what you know that you need, and denying what you really want. So you're denying that
mm,
version of yourself that may be filled with shadow, or that may be filled with something that doesn't serve you for your future self, or for your future family, or whatever you want to call it. So
yeah.
self-discipline is nice. Now I will say we have a lot of distractions, which it happens. We're human. One, and then two, we're set up. Sometimes we're set up with trauma, with generational trauma, with stressors, with systematic oppression, all of that, marginalization. We can be set up to fulfill something that goes against our self-discipline. What I help with, what I like to specialize in, is allowing people to, one, take a step back, look at everything from the big picture, because we may have different puzzle pieces, but we don't see the whole
Hmm.
puzzle. Having that introspection is what you just did, honestly. So that's a great skill to have, and it's good that we have people who can do that or are interested in doing that, because that's the first step: having the awareness, attention, and then intention.
Yes, yes. And I love that you said self-discipline is the best version of love and
Yep.
self-love. Like that is so key. Probably gonna put that on some type of social media image and post it up there. But like that's so true. And I think that a lot of people lack discipline or aren't doing that inner work to be the best version of yourselves.
Mhm.
And being that best version of yourself is self-care, which honestly is a buzzword in, therapy and society right now. But what does self care really mean, and how can people incorporate it into their lives without feeling overwhelmed?
Great question, actually. The overwhelmed part, that's why I chuckled, because that's the hard part, incorporating that into our
Hmm.
schedule, into our calendars. And I think that's also how I want to answer this. Schedule it. Schedule self-care. Put it in your calendar. Treat your self-care like it's a doctor's appointment. Treat your self-care like it's a date that you've been waiting on for the past 2 weeks. Treat your self-care like you're about to take your kids to school. A thing that I do with my mothers that I see as clients, have mommy minutes. That's what I call them. Schedule
Mm,
one, I would say like half a day or so throughout your month. Schedule it. Hey, is going to do this. Dad or whomever, grandma, whoever's taking care of the kids, I need y'all to do whatever. This is mommy time. If you can, try your best not to call me. I'm gonna have my phone on silent. I'm going to get my hair done, get my nails done. I'm going to watch a movie, go on, take myself out on a date, go to this museum, maybe just take a nice nap. I don't know. I don't care. As long as you have that time for yourself. And we have to
yeah.
schedule that. We have to be very intentional about that. Truly. Truly. So let me ask you, Tim, when was the last time you were intentional about your self care? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, that's a good question, and thank you for that. And I love when guests ask me questions, because oftentimes I find myself asking the questions, and I'm like, I want my guests to ask me questions too. But I'm very intentional twice, at least where I'm hoping to do twice a day is meditating.
Yes.
Once in the morning, once at night. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes I wake up, start scrolling on my phone on Instagram, and then I forget to do it. Or I just have an abrupt start to my day. Maybe I woke up late. But I do at least make it, I want to make it at least twice a day, but at least I know I'm doing it at least once a day. That helps me to really just be centered in myself,
Mm-hmm.
whether that is like a 5 minute meditation or a 30-minute meditation. It just really depends on like what I'm feeling that day. But like it makes me feel that I'm able to at least control what I can control within my life, not trying to control what other people are
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
or the things that I simply just are out of my hands. But at least it helps me be more centered in my decision making process.
Mhm.
So that way I know that, like, okay, I have the power to do this, and this is how I can make an active change in my life.
Mhm.
So that's one of the ways that I invest in self care. I also make it a point to go to the gym for an hour a day.
Mhm.
Sometimes I do more. Ultimately, those are some ways that I really practice self care in my everyday.
I love that. No, that's top tier. There
Hmm.
are 11 forms of self care, and they're beautiful. You practice two of those right there: emotional and mental. Well, three technically: emotional, and mental self care, and physical self
Hmm.
care. I loved how you talked about meditating. For a lot of
Yeah.
individuals, a lot of minority populations, I want to say, they think meditation just doesn't work, or we should not do it, or that's not biblical, or that's not whatever, And some people think it's hard, so they're like, I'm not going to do that. Of course, it's going to be natural.
Right.
You're going to be busy 24/7, and you really haven't asked yourself, what do I need today? Of course, meditating is going to be hard for you. Absolutely. Again, if like imagine this is like your brain, and this is like the present. Meditating is basically wanting you to stay within your present self. What we like to do, we like to go to the future or we like to go to the past. And that's what makes it very
Hmm.
difficult for individuals to really try to meditate because they find themselves in the past or they find themselves in the future. The thing is, if we go
Yeah.
to either of those extremes, if we go to the future, we're met with stress and anxiety. If we go to the past, we're met with guilt and shame. So that's why we don't want to sit down and actually meditate or just take that time to block out whatever. So the thing is about being in the present. If it's difficult, that's good because that shows you that we need to grow and we need to practice it again. It's a muscle, just like anything else. It's going to be a
Mm.
muscle. So if we are able
Yeah.
to sit in our present and we find ourselves being anxious about the future, we're like, oh, look at this. I have to do this. I need to do this. Oh, what about this? Oh, well, hold on. I'm going towards the future. Let me try to go
Hmm.
back. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be a constant thing. The thing is, the more we start doing those in the past and the future, the more we start actually doing that and bringing ourselves to present, then we can strengthen that muscle to the point where if something does happen in your life, be able to adapt and you're not able to really allow yourself to overthink or ruminate or be anxious
Yes.
or come up with fantasy and scenarios after another after another. So we don't have to do that. So really giving yourself to meditate in a non-stressful, risk-free environment that can help you strengthen that muscle in a safe place so you can really do it when you're in a hectic place. So I'm really glad you
Hmm.
talked about meditation. Thank you.
I absolutely agree. You know, it's so funny because you ever seen those videos of like strangers going on the street and it's like, what are you listening to?
Yeah.
If someone were to access my phone and look at my Spotify playlist, it's literally like all meditation.
No,
And I'm like, every now and then I love a good, Beyonce, Megan Thee
for
Stallion.
sure.
But, you know, Megan Thee Stallion and Beyonce, I'm not them. So I got to make sure that I'm good in order for me to like listen to them.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
hey, I love a good meditation playlist. And
Mm,
that's ultimately what's on my Spotify. So
it's good.
you mentioned 11 forms of self care and how I mentioned two of them. What are some of the other ones? I'm curious.
Okay, let me see if I can try. All right, so we have physical, emotional, mental, cognitive self care. That's like doing something um, that
Mm-hmm.
trains your brain. Financial
Mm,
well being in a way. So learning, well, not financial. It's like learning self care, which is like learning a new skill. All of that. Music is one. Holistic, which is anything
mm.
spiritual, religious. I really don't put religion in there, but spirituality for sure. And I think the other four I cannot think of right now. But all I know
It's
is there was
okay. It's
11.
okay. Yes, well, thanks for sharing. And just in your career and just, you see clients every day, what advice would you have for someone who is trying to find a therapist and, maybe trying to find out, like, is this therapist a good fit for them
Mm.
and trying to, like, navigate those thoughts? What advice would you have?
From the perspective of the clients going in and trying to seek therapy, what I would tell that person is go with your gut, as well as if the if you're finding yourself getting defensive, then that's probably the work. So if you
Mm,
feel as if, like your gut says, I think I won't get to where I need to be with this one, or it just depends. I say shop around, truly shop around. That's
yeah.
why I practice experiential healing center. We have intakes, and we have those intakes for a reason to actually gauge and see who would be a really good fit for each person. Yeah, shout out to EHC. But I think that's also very beneficial. So I would say, like I said earlier, go with your gut. But also, if you find yourself getting defensive or you feel emotion coming up, don't run away from it. I would don't run away.
Mm,
Really encounter it, embrace it, embrace it. And I say embrace for a reason. I'm not saying accept it. I'm saying embrace it, which is meeting it, looking at it, feeling it, acknowledging it, and then we can go from there.
yeah. And I think about my own therapy journey, Logan. I've had a few therapists.
Mhm.
But I remember specifically my one of my first therapists was named Angela. And I found myself often being resistant to some of the things that Angela was saying. But ultimately, all the things that she said were true. And it's so funny because Angela, we were the same zodiac sign. She's a Scorpio. Our birthdays are 2 days apart.
Oh wow.
So it's like we kind of like had an understanding of how like each other's brain works. So of course she would tell me the things that I don't want to hear because I just simply didn't want to hear it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately I needed to hear it in order for me to become a better person.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to Angela.
Love that. Love that.
And Logan, how, just shifting more towards you, like, you see clients every day. So, like, how do you prioritize self-care as a therapist? Because you are often taking on the energies of other people and hearing about their problems.
I will say my first bit of advice with that with anyone who is in this field: clean up your
Hmm.
environment. And when I say clean up your environment, yes, making your bed, making sure you come home to a nice clean place, that's very beneficial. But I don't really mean it in that literal sense, but figuratively. If something does trigger you, if something and or someone causes you to get back into that therapy mode, let's say when you come home, or they call you and they want to unload on you some more, I'm like, I just had a full day. I'm not doing that. I think people like to categorize therapy as, oh, all you're doing is talking to people. If that was the
Hmm.
case, I wouldn't have had the 3 degrees that I have right now. It takes a lot more.
Period. Clock the degrees.
So,
Clock the degrees. Hello.
it was actually a little post that I saw when someone is discussing, not only are we active listening, but we're referring. We are thinking about how this connects. We are literally analyzing in our brain. So
Mm,
it's hard, but it's also the best part of my job. I love my job. I really do, because it
yeah.
doesn't feel like a job. Going back to it, like you said, cleaning up your environment, having very strong boundaries that hopefully don't waver, because that's important. I know my thing is, I allow some of my clients to text me before like 7 o'clock on my business phone, not my personal phone, but
Mm,
business phone. But after
hmm.
7 o'clock, that's Logan time. That's when Logan is
Yeah.
unwinding, getting his self care together, going to the gym, eating, then going to sleep, having time with my dog, my people, partner, all that stuff.
Yes, Luna.
Yeah, she's cockeyed as hell. Love her to death. She's a pug. All of that. So having boundaries such as that. I also bookend myself. I have a sound machine outside of my office door, and I turn it on when I start, and I wait like 5 seconds before I walk into my office, and that's like, okay, you're starting your day. And then when I leave, I turn it down and wait
Yeah.
5 seconds, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm now Logan. I tell people when I leave the office or I'm like driving home, they'd like to call me. I'm like, mind you, my brain is off right now. So if I start stuttering, if I'm mumbling, if I'm not
Hmm.
giving you the answer that you really want to hear, charge it to the game. I'm sorry. My brain is literally off right now. So I let them know
Yeah.
that ahead of time. So being strong with cleaning up your environment, being strong with your boundaries, and bookending yourself, I feel like are the three most important things when it comes to caring for myself and leaving work at work.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And in your professional opinion, can therapy really be for everyone, or are there people that therapy is not suited for? Like, this may not work for them.
That's a great question, actually. I really like that question, because that brings in the different topics or modalities of therapy. People think therapy is just like CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. We talk about an issue, we
Hmm.
get to the root, and then we try to change it. Which CBT is fantastic. It absolutely is. But you also have Adlerian therapy. You have rational emotive behavioral therapy. You have DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. You also have what else? Somatic experiencing. You also have SOMEX. With all these different modalities, it approaches the challenge for the client in a different way. You can be certified in each one of the ones that I just named for sure. But it's just, there are schools of thoughts. They're just different approaches. You can, like surgery in a way. There's probably one way in which you could do something, but you can also backdoor to do something else. I love Grey's Anatomy, and if they did
Yes.
everything by the book in Grey's Anatomy, then most of the people probably would have passed away. It was about being innovative. It was about doing different things. It was about combining different surgeries and modalities and methods into one that could give you the best outcome, you know? Same thing with therapy, same thing with the different methods that we utilize. So to answer your question, I will say there are people who are resistant to specific types of those modalities, but I would probably say there is something that people can do, that a therapist could do or utilize, that could help that individual.
Wow. Wow. All right. So if you're out there and you're thinking therapy isn't good for me, hey, maybe give it a second thought. And, it could potentially be beneficial to you. So, yes.
Yeah.
And shout out to Shonda Rhimes, for Grey's Anatomy, one of the best shows on TV. Like, what?
Absolutely. While we're on the topic, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your
Mhm.
thing, but ChatGPT is great. I want
Yes, I
GPT
love
is
ChatGPT.
fantastic. That's my girl. And
Yes.
ChatGPT is not your therapist. They can help. She can help very much so. I promise you, because what ChatGPT is actually giving you is what I talked about earlier, cognitive behavioral therapy. That's what it's helping. But what do you do when you have to release that stuff? That's what SOMEX or somatic experiencing is for. That's what breath work is for. Truly getting all that stuff out. Humans are the only organisms besides zoo animals that keep and contain all of the trauma. We store that afferently. So it's from the neck down. We store that in here. That's what we talk about, gut feelings. I'm not going to get into the chart
Yeah.
right now, but we literally store that. ChatGPT, it can help you intellectualize it. But the thing is, when it comes to intellectualization, usually that's our problem right there. We overanalyze,
Yeah.
overthink. We're all left brain and we're not right brain. So ChatGPT is great. Absolutely. She's fantastic. And I will say another external therapist probably can get you where you really, really, really want to be.
Yeah, ChatGPT, that's my girl as well. I that was a word for me, Logan, because I definitely have been using ChatGPT as my therapist. But like you said, ChatGPT is not a therapist, and I feel like with AI, it's like adaptive.
Yeah.
So there is a part of it that's probably going to tell you a little bit what you need or want to hear, and not necessarily what you need to hear. So yeah, it's best to definitely do therapy for sure. But yes,
You ate with that.
yes, yes.
You ate with that one, sure did.
Hey, listen, and that's some tea right there. So
It
I'm gonna take a
is.
sip.
Take a sip, please.
Logan, if you could give, and this is our last question, if you could give our listeners one exercise or habit to start working on their mental health today, what would it be?
I would say when you wake up, don't get on your phone. Try not to speak for a little minute, but I want you to really just wait for about maybe a minute or two. And wherever your mind goes to first, and it may be your phone, it really may be your phone, but I want you to ask yourself that question: why does my mind go there first and foremost? And then that will reveal a lot. Are you trying to think about what you have to do for that day? Are you thinking about what you have to do for your kids, for your spouse, for work, something that you have coming up, a project you have coming up 2 months in advance? Like, that's automatically where your mind goes. How much value are you putting in that subject? How much? Because usually if that's the first thing, or the anxiety starts to creep up like that, or the stress starts to creep up that quickly, then we may need to do some adjusting. Truly. So I think, yeah, that's what I would say.
That is so true. I love it. So I heard you say when you wake up, just take a beat, see where your mind goes, maybe just hone in your center self and not necessarily look at your phone, and just really see where your mind goes. And if your mind starts to go towards problems or concerns, maybe consider where you can have a positive impact. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. See how much value you have in that. And if you need to change something, go ahead and change it.
I love it. I love it. So before you leave today, Logan, we do have a quick game for you. And this game is called Tea, Truth, or Therapy.
Oh, okay.
Logan, yes, yes. I got this mug Ooh, this mug filled with three types of questions: tea, truth, and therapy. Each round, you'll randomly draw one question, or I will randomly draw one question. Tea is all about lighthearted, fun vibes. Truth digs a bit deeper with self-reflection questions. And therapy, well, you're the expert here. Those are mental health insights or tips for our audience.
Okay.
Are you ready to play
Absolutely.
tea, truth, and therapy, Logan?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Steve Harvey
Let's
better
do
watch
it. Okay.
out. Steve Harvey better watch out for you.
Lit.
Cause shoot.
That I'm coming for
Yeah.
Steve Harvey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Call me the next Steve
Yeah.
Harvey.
Period.
That's what we're doing.
Love it.
All right, let's do it. So this is your first question, Logan. I got my little note card here. Okay, so this one is tea. What is your favorite comfort food when you're feeling down?
Oh, nachos. Nachos.
Ooh, I love a good
I love nachos.
nacho.
I saw a recipe the other day. Me and my partner were actually we're on a diet now. We started New Year's like most people do. So we'll see how this goes. Anyways, but I saw a recipe right to before New Year's where you basically make like a cheese quesadilla. And then I cook. I love cooking. I love baking. That's my thing. So, but you basically make a cheese quesadilla and then you cut it up and then you deep fry that. And then you make those the chips. So the chips for the nachos are actually fried quesadilla. And my big back self
Ooh.
was just so ready for that. So catch me in 6 months. That's what I'll be eating. For sure.
Listen, it's so many big back foods out there. I personally love sweet potato pie. Like that just brings me back to like my childhood.
Mhm.
Just, it reminds me of family. It just brings me just comfort. So shout out to the nachos. Shout out to the sweet potato pie.
Gotta love it.
Listen. Okay, so our next one is a truth. What is a personal fear that you've had to overcome, and how did you do it?
Ooh. Is it weird if I want you to answer first? Is that weird?
Ah!
I only asked one question. I feel like I want to ask you more. So
Okay. Fine.
okay.
So, interesting enough, with this podcast, like
Mm,
I'm often putting myself like out into the world, the public, the audience is viewing it. And I think that when I first started it, and for those that have been watching me for a while, like I started out on Instagram. So I think when I first started, I was just nervous about like how would people like perceive me,
mm,
or like what this has to be perfect. Like, no, like you're learning, you're growing along the way. And ultimately people need to hear what you have to say
mm,
because you don't know who you're helping.
mm,
So I think I just had to get over the fear of like just caring about what people think. And ultimately I just know that what I'm doing for myself and for the guests that I bring on the show and even the audience, like, is helping the greater good. Like, this is what I want to leave my mark on this world. So
for sure.
that was the fear that I had.
I like that. No, I love that.
Hmm.
When with you saying that, it just brings up the theme that I've found with a lot of different people when we are forced by the universe, by whatever you want to call it, to make these transitions, these big transitions. Our higher power tends to put us in that place, but they would like force it a little bit. So you
Yeah.
may have a breakup, a really bad breakup to get where you are right now. You may lose your job to get where you are right now. You may have
Hmm.
to set a big, strong boundary for you to be where you are right now. So
Yep.
I always say the best growth comes from those really uncomfortable situations. And so going back to what I talked about earlier, really embracing the uncomfortable, the uncomfortability,
Hmm.
that's going to make a big difference, truly. What can I do with this weird, random, bad, quote unquote bad situation, and how can I make lemonade from lemons? And it's hard. It is very, very hard, very, very hard. That can incite a lot of fear within us. The thing is, you have fear, then you have being scared. If there's a haunted house, if I'm scared going into a haunted house, I'm going to keep it going. I'm going to keep going. But the thing is, if I'm fearful of it, I'm not even going to go. I'm going to be paralyzed with that fear. So it's okay to be
Yes.
scared. It really is. And that's what courage is,
Hmm.
doing the brave thing with in spite of the scared feelings that you feel. So I love that.
Exactly.
I love
And you never really know like what lies on the other
that.
side of fear.
Mhm.
Like, take that leap of faith. take that jump and just do it because you only have one life to live. And you don't want to live your life looking back with regrets and saying, "Oh my gosh, I wish I would have did this."
Mm.
So,
I
yes.
I love that, truly, truly, because if it was with the word leap, we say leap for joy. We say that quite
Hmm.
often with the expectation that, oh, I am happy to take that leap. If we are jumping and not taking like the leap of faith, we're jumping, that's different. That's like, oh, okay, I guess I gotta go ahead and do it. But that's where
Right.
like to delight in actually doing that stuff. And that makes the big difference. It makes a really big difference. So I'm glad you took your leap. I'm glad that your platform is gonna help a lot of people. Truly.
Listen, it's tough, but like you got to do it. You got to do it because like, it comes a point where it's like, all right, it's either I'm gonna do this or I'm not.
Yes.
And it's like you don't want to not do it and wish, like I said, wish that you did it.
Yeah.
So yes. All right, we got two more questions in my lovely cup here.
Nice.
Let's see what this next one says. We have another truth. What motivates you on days when you feel emotionally drained?
What motivates me on days when I feel emotionally drained? I will say I am grateful that I
Hmm.
have a job. Well, again, I don't even call it a job. I really don't. But I'm grateful that I have an occupation where if I do feel emotionally drained, I can be like, hey, I can't give today. I just
Yeah,
cannot. It hasn't happened. It happens very, very, very rarely. Very, very rarely. Um, but I'm grateful for that. But if my dog, my dog, I will
yeah,
say my dog really does help me. My partner, he helps me quite significantly. He is very, very, very supportive. Like I knew he was the one for a long time, but I remember the first time in which I really, really did know was when I could come home. Like I had a really very emotional day at work, and I just came home, laid on the couch, and he was just there. I was like, "How's your day?" I said it was a hard day. I just need to lay here. He was like, "Okay." Then we sat there for like an hour, and he didn't
mm,
say a word. I didn't have to say a word. We were able to just be in that space. So
wow.
shout out to shout out to him.
Yes, so shout out to the partners. And I think that it's so important to have a very supportive partner, especially during those hard days,
Mhm.
because sometimes you just need somebody to listen,
Yeah,
and sometimes our friends are not readily available. So it's just nice to just have a space to breathe.
absolutely.
So shout out to the relationship girlies. All right, our last question. Let's see, let's see. And this one is therapy. What is a small daily habit that can improve mental wellness over time?
Mm. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Working out or doing some sort of exercise.
Yeah.
That adds up. There are spaces in which our mind really can chill out, and two of them is one is working out or exercising, and then two is when you're in the shower. Those are in which
Mm,
you're just there to do something, and then you're done.
yeah.
So exercising is beneficial not just for your mental sanity, but for your physical sanity as well. And they work in tandem with each other. Tandem. Every time I say the word tandem, I think of Wicked, and I just love that. Anyways, so
If we work
yep,
in
yep,
tandem,
yep. Mm-mm-mm.
there's no further we can do it. Okay, I'm
Just
clearly
you
not.
and I. If I,
Yeah, okay, wait, it's the
don't
voice for me.
don't
Hold
start.
on.
Don't start. Not today. Not today.
Wait, Logan, I didn't know you could sing
uh,
because what?
it's a 1-2. Just a 1-2. That's it.
Okay, so are you Cynthia or am I Cynthia or am I Ari or who are you?
I feel as if because you're gonna come into a room and you're gonna command that shit. So you're
Hmm.
Ariana. You're Ariana.
Okay,
Come
all right.
on.
Listen. I love Ari.
That's my girl. Love her down. Love her down.
Cool. Well, let me go ahead and get my pink dress and what is the stash called? I don't know, but the
One.
staff
Yeah.
wands.
Uh-huh. Same thing. Same thing.
And we're gonna paint you green, Logan.
Let's do it.
So
Let's do it. I'm here for
I
it.
love it. I love it. One last question. We're gonna shake things up a bit. I just
Ooh.
thought about this, and I'm going to combine all three categories into one wild card question. Are you ready?
All right. Yes, sure.
If you could share a personal experience where self-care made you, I would say, as it share a real experience where self-care made a real difference in your life, and if you can give us one actionable tip that inspired that moment.
Mm. Mm. Shout out to Dr. Akins. She
Mm-hmm.
was my academic supervisor my last semester of um, my master's program, and I was presenting my conceptual case to the class. I think like 2 weeks from that date, but I had to have it finished 2 days from what I'm about to talk about right now. Anyways, so I had a lot going on. I think my phone was messed up. My car did a thing. Um, I had to move um, unwillingly. It was a
Mm,
whole situation with the old roommate. It was a lot going on.
mm-hmm.
That Luna, she was very sick at that time. I was in the middle of a training as well. A lot was going on. It was
Right.
it was a lot. Um, so I what inspired it was she actually inspired Dr. Akins. She was talking about, hey, if you can't do this, you can't do this, it's okay to say no. Hold your boundaries. Self care, self care, self care. Fun fact: in my personal grad school program, we had a week of every semester of self care. We had to talk about self care, write about it because they really want us to be about it because of the field. So she was preaching that, of course, and one day I was ridden with anxiety. I was incredibly nervous. And I
Mm,
was like, hey, Dr. A, I can't. Like, I know this is due. I want to give my best work. She see my word. Yeah, I want to give my best work. And I was like, I just can't. She was like, Logan, take a breath, turn it in 4 weeks from now. You're fine. And I'm like,
mm,
not only she didn't give me like a couple of days, she gave me 2 extra weeks. So I'm like,
yeah.
what? And I feel like she was really in that breath holding space for me. She was able to help me with that. And that really, I use that example because that really just shattered a lot of my thinking. Oh, people just say to take time for yourself. You don't do it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, she did it. And she went above and beyond to make sure that I was good. And mind you, I didn't have to give an entire explanation of this was going on, this was going on. That's what we do as humans. We want to over explain ourselves. This is why I can't do this.
Exactly.
Your no is a no. It is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a no. If that needs to be a hard boundary, then let it be a hard boundary. If someone tries to challenge that, maybe challenge the relationship. But let me not get into that right now.
Mm,
But I would say that saying I just could not do it. And I was a chronic people pleaser. I still am fighting that for sure.
yeah.
But then it was much worse. But I was a chronic people pleaser, codependent, classic, anxious attachment style, all the things. And that was one of the first instances in which I was able to hold space for myself and someone else was able to do that with me in the same breath. That's actually Dr. Akins LaShonda. That's my girl. we tight as hell. I love her. She's amazing. She has the most perfect little boy, Mally, and it's just fantastic. So I hopefully that answers your question.
I love it. It does. And maybe you can even share this episode with her once it airs. So, yes, thank you for sharing your personal experience with self care and how it made a difference in your life. I think for me, just right now, like I'm in this period of transition in my life and I'm just learning to embrace it. For me, just again, meditation, acupuncture. You mentioned how going to the gym and taking a shower like just helps improve your mental health. Those are two things I do very often. It's actually very strange because sometimes I'll shower 3 times a day just because I just like being in the water.
Yeah.
Call me weird, but hey, that's just what I do. And I exercise pretty often, really taking care of my body during this time. And I'm just excited for what the future brings. So, yes.
Beautiful. That's good. Yeah.
Logan, thank you so much for coming on What's the Tea with Tim. You are absolutely amazing. I'm so excited for all the amazing things that you're doing and will continue to do for your clients in the world of mental health, in the world of therapy. Your skills and your mind is so needed.
Mhm.
So, again, just thank you again for coming on the show.
It is truly my pleasure. Again, this is an amazing platform, and for you to be here and allow us to be here, that's amazing. So thank you.
Of course. Happy New Year and wishing you all the best in 2025.
Yes, likewise, likewise. Happy New Year.
Wow, besties. Wasn't that a powerful conversation? This is the last drop. A huge thank you to Logan for spilling the tea on therapy and self care. It was raw, real, and inspiring. Remember, it's okay to not be okay. Whether you're at the top of your game or if you feel like you're barely holding on, therapy and self care are here for you. Prioritize your well being, find what works for you, and keep shining your light. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to share it with a friend who might need a little extra encouragement. You can also follow us on social media at What's the Tea with Tim and subscribe to our YouTube for more conversations and resources. Until next time, keep sipping, keep smiling, and keep being you. See you next week, besties.